Hey guys, welcome back to the Compass Games Learn to Play series. Today we welcome back designer John Butterfield, who is going to give us a detailed teach for his latest game, World War II Commander Market Garden. So sit back and get ready to learn how to refight this famous historic Battle of the Bridges. Over to you, John.
All right, thank you, Mo. Hi, everybody. John Butterfield here. Today, I want to teach you the newest game design of mine that's coming out as we speak from Compass Games. It's World War II Commander Market Garden. It's the second in a series of fast and simple two-player war games on key battles of World War II. The first one was World War II Commander Battle of the Bulge that came out a few years back. And this one is on Market Garden. It's an area impulse game. You can see the game board here. This is the entire board. On paper, it's a typical 22 by 34 game board. So this shows the entire area of the Market Garden campaign from the Belgian border with Holland down here on the left edge of the board. So the board is kind of oriented. The left edge is south and the right edge is north in the Arnhem area. And the highway that was the centerpiece of the campaign runs down the middle of the board. So these areas represent the terrain in Holland. I'm going to zoom in a little here and get a little closer. So the terrain includes clear terrain, mixed terrain, polder, which is the low farmlands unique to Holland, and woods, cities like Eindhoven, and then some areas also have towns on top of other terrain. The map has rivers. That's the wide waterways up here. There's three rivers, the Maas, the Waal, and the Nederrijn. And then there are canals, these narrower, straight water courses. So the rivers and then canals and these white boundary lines are the borders of all the spaces on the map. So this canal here is dividing this space from this space. There are victory points along the map, which are goals for the Allied 30 Corps to reach over the course of the game. If they don't get to these points by particular turns in the game, they can get an automatic early loss. If they get up to Arnhem before the end of the game, 30 Corps that is, they can win the game early. The game features units of several kinds. I'm going to zoom in a little more so we can take a look at a typical unit. Here's an armor unit. This is 30 Corps, is this color here, British 30 Corps. Here's a German infantry unit. Here's a German armor unit. This type is motorized infantry. And here's an Allied mechanized infantry. Here's a light recon unit. And if we scroll over here, here's an armored recon unit. This unit here is an American airborne unit. The red unit type indicates it's elite. And here is their counterpart in the over here on the right edge. Here's a British glider infantry unit, and here's a British airborne infantry unit. So that gives you an idea of the range of units. I'll describe the values of the units when we get into explaining how combat works. So in this game, 2 units on each side can occupy a given space. So these units I'm zeroing in on here, there's 2 Allied units in the space, and they can coexist with enemy units in the same space. So there could be as many as 2 German units in this space as well. In this initial setup, there's just 1 German unit. Likewise over here, there's 2 Allied units and 1 German unit. All the spaces on the map start in German control, except for those spaces that are solely occupied by Allied units. So this space here has a Allied control marker because only Allied units are in this space. And that's also the case for this space over here where Allied airborne units have just landed. So the game opens on September 17th, 1944, and the Allied airborne forces are just landing, and 30 Corps is just starting its attack from the south, at the south edge of the map. So over here is the 101st Airborne units. These are regiment-sized units, and those are 3 regiments that have landed here, here, and here. The 82nd Airborne Division has landed here. Here we split up a regiment into 2 smaller units, and then 2 airborne units from 82nd down here. And again, because they are in a space occupied only by Allied units, that space is Allied controlled at the start of the game. And then the British paratroopers are here in these 2 spaces, and then all the other units on the board. And there aren't that many at the start of play. They come on quickly, though, are the German units. German units come in 3 colors because there's the 15th Army. There are 3 German commands, the 1st Parachute Army, and then the 2nd SS Corps are the dark gray. And then starting on turn 2, some light gray units of the 15th Armor come in over on the west edge of the map. The Allied commands are also indicated by color. 30 Corps, the 101st Airborne Formation is light green, the 82nd Airborne is mid-green, and the British 1st Airborne is like a light maroon. There are some Polish unit that enters later that is also part of, will join the 1st Airborne. Okay, so this is the initial setup, and it's showing you initial space control. Before the game, part of initial setup, there are 2 special rules that we resolved. The first one is that 1 unit of the British 1st Airborne Division up here gets to be placed in 1 space adjacent to where it dropped. It's kind of getting we call it Red Devils move out. Red Devils being the nickname of the 1st Airborne Division. So the Allied player chooses this unit here and moves it over to here. And because they do that, this space becomes Allied controlled, clearing the move, because the unit's not considered moved. Another special rule on turn 1 is that the 3 units that are on the map from the 2nd SS, here, here, and here, are already considered activated. In this game, units are activated, and then when they're finished doing something, they get a cube placed on them to indicate they're done for the game turn. On turn 1, these 3 units are considered in barracks, so they do not get to activate, or we treat them as if they've already activated. So that's a special thing on turn 1. Speaking of game turns, I'm going to show you the game turn track here. The game is played in game turns, total of as many as 13, although it can end earlier. Marker here, this was showing the initial setup things we had to do, but now we're starting turn 1. And then every game turn is played in a series of impulse. The players alternate taking impulses to activate 1 or 2 units per impulse. And then this time marker moves down this track. And when it gets to the end, the game turn is over. On turn 1, you'll see that there's not that many units on the map, so get moved before we get to the end of the track, and you'll see that. So I'm going to start by activating units. The Allied player has the initiative for the first 4 turns. After that, it varies depending on the weather. Speaking of weather in the game, the weather can be clear, which is automatically on turn 1, or it can be overcast, depending on a die roll at the start of each turn. Automatic here on turn 1. Clear weather is good for the Allies because they get a little bonus in combat due to their air support. Overcast weather is good for the Germans because that bonus doesn't apply, and also the Germans can do strategic movement, which they can only do in overcast weather. The Allies can do it in every weather. Okay, so I'm going to start by activating 2 Allied units. Down in 30 Corps, we're going to activate these 2 units, and they are in a space occupied by a German unit. In your activation, you can move, and if you're in a space with an enemy unit, you attack. So let's say instead I wanted to activate this guy. He is in a friendly controlled space, so he can move anywhere. He's recon. All motorized units can move up to two spaces. Infantry units, such as this one, can move only one space. So if this recon unit were selected to be the first unit to go, they could move here. And once they move there, even though it's the middle of their move, because this space has no enemy units in it, it would immediately become Allied controlled. And then they can do a second move into there. A movement into an enemy occupied space then requires that combat occur. It's not optional if you move into an enemy occupied space that they control, you must attack them. But that's not the best move for the Allies. But I just wanted to demonstrate movement. Movement varies with the unit type. Not only, as I said, infantry can move one space, all mechanized units can move more than one, but there are limits based on terrain. And I'll get to that as I move more units. But in the case of this first activation, the Allies are going to choose to activate these two units. When you activate, you can activate one unit or two units in the same space, or you can activate two units in different spaces as long as they are both in the same formation and move to the same space. I'll demonstrate that idea later. But for now, these two units are activating and they're already in an enemy occupied space, so they're just going to go ahead and attack it. So now I'll be explaining what these other values on the counters mean. Every counter has a large number, which is its strength. This armored unit here has a strength of 5. As units take combat losses, their strengths are reduced 1 pip at a time. So in the board game version of this, as opposed to this vassal version, every unit is represented on one or more units and on each face of that counter. So this unit here with a strength of 5 actually has 3 counters in the box. A strength 5 and 4 on one counter, a strength 3 and 2 on a second, and a strength 1 on a third. Well, when it loses that last step, it's eliminated entirely. So that's their strength, and it also represents the number of dice they get to roll in combat. So this armor unit will be rolling 5 dice, and we use 10-sided dice in the World War II Commander system. And that second number on their counter in the diamond, in this case a 4, is the chance to hit on a 10-sided die. So a die result of 1, 2, 3, or 4 would be a hit against the enemy. In a combat, all units on both sides in the space are considered to fire simultaneously, and then you apply hits. So the Allies in this combat here have this armor unit with a strength of 5 and a hit chance of 4, and they have a mechanized infantry unit with a strength of 4 and a hit chance of 4. The German has a strength of 2 with a hit chance of only 3. Now, there will be some other modifiers applied to this. And to show that, I'm going to open up the modifiers here. This is from the play aid that comes with the game. When an attacker is rolling dice, they modify their hit chance, not the number of dice, not the die roll, but the hit chance. This unit has a base hit chance of 4. And then we look at the modifiers. If the attacking unit is Allied 30 Corps, which it is, and the weather is clear, it's a +1. That's what I mentioned before, that weather's clear. So that increases his hit chance to 5. If the defender included armor, armored recon, or Allied elite, there'd be a -1. The defender is none of those. It's a German infantry. If the combat's in a clear terrain space, there's +1. Easier to hit in clear terrain. This is not clear terrain. This is mixed terrain. Clear is here. If the defender was out of supply, there would be a +2. He's not. Everyone's in supply. If the attacking unit entered the space in this impulse by crossing a river or canal, there'd be a -2 to the attack hit chance. So the only modifier that applies in this combat is the clear weather. So the armor unit's hit chance is a 5 instead of a 4, and likewise for the mechanized infantry unit that's participating. Since both units have the same hit chance, we can roll all the dice, 9 dice, for both of them at once and look for results of 5 or less. So let's say I roll 5 dice. The game comes with 7, so in this case you roll 7 and then 2. So let's say we rolled those 9 dice and we got 4 hits, for example. That means that of the 9 dice rolled, 4 of them were a 5 or less. So that would be 4 hits on the Germans. Now, before we apply hits, the Germans get their chance to inflict some damage. So this infantry unit will be getting to roll 2 dice with a hit chance of 3. However, there are also modifiers to the defender's hit chance. If we look at the list of modifiers here, to defender hit chance modifier. If the attacker includes armor unit, the defender's hit chance is -1. And that's the case here. If the combat were in clear terrain, it'd be +1. It's not. If there was a river involved, there'd be a +2, but there's not. So the German chance to hit is only 2. So the Germans are rolling 2 dice and will hit on a 1 or a 2 out of 10. We're going to say the German got a little bit lucky, rolled 2 dice, and one of the rolls was a 2. So they do 1 damage. Now remember, the Allies did 4 damage. So it doesn't really matter which order you apply. The defenders choose first their own damage. They apply the damage to themselves. So in this case, the defender has taken 4 hits. You can satisfy hit by retreating into an adjacent friendly space only, or by removing a strength. Another thing that helps the defender is you'll notice that some of the spaces have these subtractions. That's a subtraction. That's a hit subtraction for terrain. This space, this mixed space, has no terrain modifier, so the defender gets no help in that regard. If the defender were in this space, 1 hit would be subtracted from their total. So instead of 4 hits, they'd be having to assign 3. That's not the case here. So the Germans can retreat 1. So let's say they did that. However, it's not going to be enough because they also have to satisfy 3 more hits. They take the second hit by decreasing the strength by 1. Get rid of that move. And then a third hit by getting eliminated. So there were enough hits to totally kill that unit. But as I mentioned earlier, the Germans did inflict 1 hit on the Allies. So the Allies also have to assign that hit. Attacking units can't retreat, are not allowed to retreat. So it'll come off a unit of the Allied player's choice. If hits are to be assigned to more than 1 unit, they have to be distributed as evenly as possible. In this case, the Allies will assign it to the mech infantry. So it goes from a 4 to a 3. So you can see that its strength is reduced. Sometimes when units lose strength steps, they also suffer other reductions in capability, like their hit chance might go down, or they might even change from an armored unit to a, say, a mech infantry unit. That doesn't mean they magically transform, but units at this size have several types of units in them. And if an armor unit seems to lose its armor, it's because its tanks have been hit hard, leaving only its mechanized infantry component. So that was one combat, except there's one more thing the Allies can do here. Because they totally eliminated the enemy force, motorized units are allowed a breakthrough move. That is, they can move 1 space in any direction, even into an enemy-occupied space, and doing so will not trigger combat. And they can go in different directions. So they are both going to move up into these woods. That does not trigger a combat. Now that their movement's completed, though, a couple things happened. Because they were the sole, when the German was eliminated, the Allies became the sole occupant of this space, so they get to place a control marker in there. And when they have finished their activation, they get a activation cube to show that they can't move again for the rest of the turn. So that's a complete impulse for the Allied player. So now the German player gets an impulse. The first German impulse, the German player can move any unit on the board or two units if they start in the same space or move to the same place. In this case, the units they have are the four over here near well, there were five, but one's now dead. But there's these four guys here. They also have a unit in this off-map area. That's a reinforcement unit for game turn one. All German reinforcements appear in these off-map areas and can enter play from there, or can move to another off-map area to shift where they will enter play. So that's another unit the Germans could move. The only units they have up north, though, are the three that are already activated by special game turn one rule. So the Germans don't have much to work with on turn one. In this case, they're going to get this guy who's in trouble in the sense that he can be attacked very strongly by them. They're going to run away with him. And he's a motorized infantry, so he can move two. So he'll go one to there. When he moves out, that gives complete control of this space to the Allies. So we'll put a control marker there for them. And then this motorized infantry unit finishes its move in the woods here, a better defensive position and harder for the Allies to get to him. Okay, so that's the first German impulse. When the side without the initiative, in this case the Germans, complete an impulse, we advance the time marker one space along the time track. So in this way, as the players alternate impulses, this time marker will move along the track. So now it's the Allies go again, and they're going to look in the 101st Airborne area here, and they're going to move these two guys. They're in the same space. Since they're in a space in friendly control that's not contested, they can move anywhere. So this guy's going to go here using the bridge to cross the canal. Although at this scale, a unit can cross a canal without a bridge. If it would normally be able to move two spaces, however, it would have to stop after the first space entered. And this Allied unit is going to move down to here. Okay, that was an Allied activation. They get their cubes on them, and also because they moved into the German controlled space that's not occupied by Germans, they get to take control of those spaces they just moved into. It's the German turn again. They're going to wait and see what the Allies do. The play without the initiative can always pass. Doing so still advances the clock, so they're going to pass. All right, the Allies are going to go to the 82nd Airborne area, and they're going to activate these two guys. One will cross the canal into here towards Nijmegen, and the other will move up to Weichen towards Grave. And that is an activation. Then it's the Germans go. They're going to go ahead and activate this guy and move him onto the map here. He's going to try to get up into Eindhoven. One of the German goals in this game is to block the highway, the main highway, as much as they can, because that's the route that 30 Corps must travel to get across the bridges and up to Arnhem to relieve the paratroopers in Arnhem and win the game. So German infantry unit, he can only move one space. That's all he can do on his way to the highway. So that was a German impulse, so we advanced the time. Now it's the Allies again. They're going to activate this guy and this guy. And they can do that because the plan is to have them move to the same space. He's an infantry that can only move one, so he goes here. But this guy is a recon unit, the Jeeps that landed with the 1st Airborne. So they're going to move two spaces, one to here and one to here. And moving into Oosterbeek gives that control to the Allied player. Now it's the German go. Again, the German player wishes he could move these, but
these units, but you can't.
The German player is going to, oh, I forgot to do something here. I should have put a cube. Now, this guy is here. He could move out so that next turn he's not so strongly attacked. Or let's wait and see what the Allies do with them. Okay. This armor unit is also a possibility to move. However, he's occupying a very strong defensive position. Cities have a subtraction of -2 to hits. So if he were attacked, 2 of the hits received could be disregarded. All right, the Allies will move this guy over to Bagel. Mark him finished. Place control. And Germans will pass. Oh, should have been one more. Right, they're there. All right, so the Allies will move something new in 30 Corps. They're going to activate these 2 guys. They're going to kind of try to swing around. One of them will go here and here, and begin placing control in both spaces as they go. Let's finish that. This one could go the same way. No, I mentioned that the ability of motorized units and mechanized units to move 2 spaces is sometimes affected by terrain and the presence of enemy units. So motorized infantry, such as this piece here, can move 2 spaces, but not into if the second space is enemy occupied. So this guy cannot move into there. He will instead go just to here and take Bergijk. Okay, the Germans, now that they see that this guy's moved up here, they are going to back out to Valkensford. Now, we don't mark German control as the Germans move because it's any space without a control marker is German controlled. And that is a time advance. Okay, we'll move the other guys from the 82nd Airborne. They're both going to go towards Nijmegen, controlling that space. They're finished moving. Okay, the Germans, T will move there. No, he's going to stay where he is. The Germans will pass. Okay. The Allies are going to attack. The Allied airborne are going to move into here. And he will move into here in 1 activation. By the way, the spaces with these supply symbols are the supply sources for the airborne division. So they need to protect at least one of those for each division in order to be able to trace supply. Every airborne division has 2 of these. There's 2 here for the 1st Airborne. There's 1 here and 1 here for the 82nd Airborne, here and here for the 1st Airborne. When the Poles land later, they get their own supply head that can be placed wherever they land. Okay, so our British guys have moved into here and will attack this German infantry here. Even though that infantry is marked, it's a motorized infantry, is marked activated, it can still participate in combat and retreat if necessary. So the British airborne has a strength of 4 and a hit chance of 3, and the British glider infantry has a strength of 2 and a hit chance of 3. The German unit has a strength of 2 and hit chance also of 3. Now the modifiers here, let's look at those again because they're a little different now. The attacker gets the +1 for clear weather only if they're part of Allied 30 Corps. So the airborne units don't have the benefit of air power to help them. There's no other modifiers that apply to the attacker's hit chance, so it will be as printed, a 3. The defender hit chance modifiers, none of those apply either. So this combat will be resolved with the hit chances on all sides as printed. So there's a total of 6 allied strength points in this attack, all with a hit chance of 3. So we're going to roll 6 dice, and when we do, we get 2 and a 3, and then 4 higher numbers. So that's 2 hits. So just remember that for a moment, that there were 2 hits inflicted on the German unit. Now the German unit gets to fire with 2 dice, hitting on 3s. And so they roll the 2 dice, but neither of them are 3 or less. So the Germans inflicted no hits. So what we have to apply here are 2 hits on the German unit. However, where's that modifier? There it is. It's lurking under the British. Because they're in the woods, there's a -1 modifier to the defender hits. It doesn't help the attacker, only the defender. So that 2 hits against the German unit becomes 1 hit. So the German player has a choice. They can take that hit by losing a strength point or by retreating. They will choose to retreat, so they go to here. Because they moved out of Wolfes, the Allies take control of it. Okay, so that was, I have to mark all these guys. These are all done now. Okay, so all the British guys are done. It looks like the 82nd Airborne are done. 101st is done. Okay, so the only piece left to move on turn 1 for the Allies is the recon unit over here in De Groot. So that guy has a choice now of where he wants to go. He can move 2 spaces in any direction, and recon can enter as its second space any type of terrain and can enter enemy occupied. So he's going to go ahead and do that. He's going to come down here and enter here. It's not a great attack, but nonetheless he must attack because he entered an enemy occupied space that's enemy controlled. So the British recon unit has a strength of 3 and a hit chance of 2. Remembering the modifiers, because it's a 30 core unit in fair weather, its hit chance is increased by 1, so its hit chance is a 3. The German unit gets to roll 2 dice with a hit chance of 3. There are no modifiers. This recon unit's not armor, so there's no modifiers related to armor. So the British recon unit rolls 3 dice. I'm actually going to do it for real here using the dice roller that comes with the Vassal mod. I rolled a 3, a 4, and a 10, which becomes 1 hit because the hit chance of 2 was increased by 1 by the fair weather. So that's 1 hit on the German unit. The German unit gets to fire. It's rolling 2 dice, and it also gets 1 hit. Its hit chance of 3 remained at 3. So both sides take a hit. The German will take it by retreating, as is their prerogative. But if a German unit retreats, it is considered to have been activated, if not yet activated. So in this case, that activates the German unit by retreating. And the Allied unit can't retreat. It must lose a step. So we decrease its strength. And place an activation cube. And because the German left the space, we place control. And, we also need control in near pelt because the recon unit moved through there. So it looks like that. And we have control in here. Sometimes you forget in the heat of battle to do some of these administrative things, but marking control is important because it lets you know where units can move. Units that are in that hex have more mobility if the space is friendly controlled. So that was the Allied impulse. The Germans have an opportunity to move that guy, but are not going to do it. They're just going to pass. And Since the Allies are done, they are going to pass also. If the two sides pass consecutively, that ends the day. So day one is now complete. This goes to the end, and once that goes to the end, we advance to the next turn. Time marker goes back to here to start the cycle over again. And I'm going to walk through the sequence of play at this. There's some start of turn activities. So we're starting turn two. That was the end of the first turn of Market Garden. I wanted to play one more turn to demonstrate some additional things. Hope you're getting an idea of how this plays. But moving on to turn two, we reset the time track marker. We advanced the turn marker. Now the German player gets to roll the die for weather. Up here in the weather box, it tells us, we check down here. This is an AM turn. So the weather's more likely to be overcast than clear. It tells us here that on a roll of 1 or 2, it'll be clear. On a roll of 3 through 10, it'll be overcast. Let's say that a 5 was rolled, so the weather is overcast. So we flip that marker over to overcast. So overcast, it would be a German initiative from game turn 4 on. However, on the first 3 turns, the Allies always have the initiative. And because it's overcast, the Germans can do strategic movement, which allows their motorized units to move along roads unlimited distance. That sounds good, but for the Germans, a unit doing strategic movement can't enter an Allied controlled space, even if it's empty, and can't enter an enemy occupied space, and are limited to roads. So it has its uses in the right situation. The Allied 30 corps units can do the same thing along the highway, along this highway. They can do strategic movement, but not into a German controlled or occupied. Well, they can go into an empty German controlled space, but they can't go into a German occupied space. And that's why the Germans want to put units on the highway to prevent strategic movement from allowing the 30 corps units to zoom up the highway. So in any case, that was a digression based on the overcast weather. After checking for weather, we remove all activation cubes. So that's simple to do in Vassal because you just hit the little reset button and all the little black cubes go away. It's also pretty simple to do in the actual game. It takes about 10 seconds. We check supply for all units. I don't think there's any supply issues, but just to explain how supply works, a German unit is in supply if it can trace a path of friendly controlled spaces from the unit to an entry area for its command. So the second SS, for example, the second SS entry areas are N1, N2, N3, and N4. As long as a path of Allied units can be traced from the unit to the entry area, it's in supply. This guy can trace up to here, or also there's a ferry here that the Germans can trace across. You can trace them there across the ferry to there. The German units in 1st Parachute Army here can all trace down to one of these boxes. Like even this one can trace through here. There's no limit to the distance a German unit can, the length of the path. Allied 30 Corps must be able to trace here. And again, the supply head marker tells you where it must trace to. But their path, the path for 30 Corps is limited to 3 spaces to the road. So this guy is in supply because he can go 1, 2, 3 to a road and then back to the supply source. But if he were here, he would not be in supply because he'd have to go 1, 2, 3, 4. Allied Airborne is 4 spaces to one of their supply sources. So with 101st Airborne using these, you can see that it's very easy for them to trace supply. And likewise, 82nd Airborne to either of these, and 1st Airborne to either of these. Okay, so no one's out of supply. Now we place reinforcement units at the start of the turn. The game comes with a display, which I've just opened up here, that is the entire order of battle for the Allied side and for the German side. So the Allied one, all of this part of the display here were the units that were placed on the map during setup. You'll notice some of them appear to be stacks. That's because they're large units that are represented by multiple counters per unit. In the actual game, you could stack those replacement counters right here for ease of access. This part shows reinforcements. On turn 2, the Allies get 3 reinforcements. The ones for 30 core are always placed in the space of the Groot. They always start there. The airborne unit, in this case, it's a British glider unit. It was placed on a supply head for its airborne formation. So our airborne unit here, I'm going to move him over here, he'll land there. Landing, that's not considered a move. That's a placement during the reinforcement step. So that's the Allied reinforcement. Now the Germans, they get all of these units here. So I'm going to pull them out, start up in the north, and 4, 3, and 2. So here, another, and 4. I'm going to shrink the map a little bit. Sorry. Stage. Then these 2 from the 1st Parachute Army, then into E4, threatening the 82nd Airborne. And this one, first unit to enter the game from the 15th Army, goes into WWII in the 101st Airborne sector. So that was 9 German units entering play on turn 2. And they're always placed in one of these off-map areas from where they enter. So that was the reinforcements. Later in the game, units can get replacements, which are regaining lost strength, but that doesn't start till turn 6. So now we return to conducting impulses. Again, the Allies have the initiative, so they will start. Here's where the kind of the chess-like nature of the game comes into play, because choosing what to do with this precious first impulse on turn 2 can be decisive. Arnhem is at the moment empty. Arnhem is a space that the Allies need to control by the end of the game, and it's the job of the 1st Airborne to grab it and hold it. So the Allied player would be thinking about moving one or both of these guys into Arnhem. Because on the German first impulse, if the Allies haven't done that, one of these guys, even one of these guys, could move into Arnhem. But countering that, Nijmegen's also a valuable space. If the Allies move to take Arnhem, then the German could enter Nijmegen and hold that. But we're going to assume that Arnhem is what we're going to do first. And we're going to activate, as the Allies, this airborne unit here and move that one into Arnhem. We could also activate this recon unit and move him in or somewhere else, but we're not going to, because we don't want to leave Oosterbeek empty so that a German unit could move into there. So we're not activating this guy, only this guy. We put the finished marker on him and a control marker. So at the moment, the Allies control Arnhem with the airborne. That's great, but for victory, it has to be occupied by a 30 core unit. Okay, so that was the Allies' first activation. Now it's the German first activation on turn 2. They will move this recon unit here into Nijmegen. Okay, and that advances the time. Now the Allies are going again. They're going to activate these 2. This one's going to move into there. And this one's going to do another attack on this German motorized infantry unit. So the British is 4 dice hitting on 3s, and the German will be 2 dice hitting on 3s. The German will have the advantage of the -1 modifier to its subtraction to its hits. So the Allies roll 4 dice and get 1 hit, and the Germans roll 2 dice and oh boy, the Germans got very lucky and got 2 hits on the airborne. Now, if the airborne unit was defending, that is, the German was attacking it, there would be a -1 because the Germans are attacking an elite unit. But the elite airborne do not get that +1 when they're attacking. So both these hits apply, and the British, since they're attacking, don't get the -1 for the terrain. So that British unit has to lose 2 strength points. That might not have been a wise attack. The German unit has to lose 1 or retreat. I don't think the Germans want to give up this space, so he's going to take the hit. Because this German unit did not retreat, it is not activated, so it would still get to do something this turn. Our British attacker is activated and does not control the space. The Germans still control it. So now it's a German activation again, and they're looking at the situation here, and they're thinking, this guy's going to get attacked very strongly out here. They're going to activate and go to here. Tactically, the reason they're doing that is that an armor unit that's attacking or defending in woods and in polder, which are both terrain not friendly to armor, can only roll 2 dice, even if it has more strength. So this armor unit with a strength of 5 here, he could move in here because there's a road and attack, but it only get to roll 2 dice. So this is a better defense position than here for this German unit. So that was the German move. All right, so this guy's done. So now it's the Allies, 34. This guy is moving 1, 2. He is mechanized infantry. He can enter an enemy occupied space as the second space of his move. The motorized infantry could not, as I demonstrated about this unit earlier. The armor unit will move in. He won't get many dice, but he wants to get close to Eindhoven. So they're both moving into attack. We moved through Valkenswaard with allied units, so we should place a control marker there, putting a control marker in Valkenswaard, and we're going to conduct this attack. All right, so our armor, because it's in forest, instead of getting 5 dice, gets to roll only 2 with a hit chance of 4. The weather is overcast, so there's no +1 for air helping 30 Corps. And this guy gets 3 dice hitting on 4. So between them, they have a total of 5 dice hitting on 4s. What the Allies can do. They got 2 hits. Okay. Our German gets 2 dice hitting on 3s. The armor unit still gets, there's a modifier that's still applied. Again, if a defender is firing at an attacker that includes an armor unit, it's -1. So the chance to hit for the German unit is only a 2. So 2 dice hitting on 2s. They get lucky. Let's see, 2 dice. They did get 1 hit. Okay. So in this case, the Allies will satisfy the hit by taking it on the armor unit. Oh, maybe they won't, because see, when this guy flips over, he loses his armor. So the Allies are going to change their mind on that, and instead take it off of the motorized, the mechanized infantry. Then there were two hits against the German unit, but it's in the woods. One absorbed by the woods, so it has to either retreat or take a step. It's going to retreat into Eindhoven. Okay, so even though it has the black cube on it of activation, it can still retreat. The Allies take control of Valray. Now, the Valray is now empty, but the Allied units don't get that breakthrough move I mentioned earlier because they have to eliminate the opposing unit in order to get the breakthrough move. So these guys are done. Okay, German turn again. This guy has some interesting options. He could come in behind the Allies and cut them off, or he could run away, run back to live another day. Instead, this guy is going to do that. He's going to go into here. We could, because these two units are in the same formation, we could activate them both if they both moved into Dolmanet. But we'll do something else with them. So then, since they're not going to move to the same space, they can't activate at the same time. Finished. Okay, and advance the time here. That was the third. All right, now the Germans will activate him and bring him. We can move two spaces. If this was not Allied control, this unit could strat move to there. It's a motorized unit and it's overcast. But this road space, though, is Allied control, so he's going to stop here with a regular move of 2. Okay, these two guys kind of want to attack in Nijmegen, but they're concerned about them. So they're going to wait and see what those guys do. That's their plan anyway. We'll go back down here to 30 Corps, and this guy is going to go into here and attack. 6 dice hitting on 4s. A lot of dice, but only 1 hit. And 2 dice hitting on 3s. One hit. So that's not good for the Allies. The woods absorbs the hit on him, and this guy has to take a 1 hit. All right, now the Germans. Now this guy feels going to stay where he is for now. This guy will move to here. All right, the Allies. This guy is going to move into Arnhem. This guy is going to go 1, 2 into Oosterbeek and try to attack. Now, here we have an elite armor unit. They have 2 hit chances. The red one is used when attacking. The black one is used when defending. So his hit chance is 6, which is very high. He is, however, firing at an elite airborne unit. So the elite bonus applies when the unit's being attacked. So the 6 becomes a 5 because of the elite. So it's 2 dice hitting on 5s. We're going to say that both those rolls were 5 or less, so there's 2 hits. The airborne unit gets to roll 2 dice, normally hitting on 3s, but since it's firing at armor, it only hits on 2s. We'll say both those missed. So the Allies must satisfy 2 hits. 1 is absorbed by the town, so must take 1 hit. They don't want to give up Oosterbeek by retreating, so they will take the step. And then the Germany is finished, and this advances. The Allies maintain control of Easterbeek, though contested. Okay, seeing what's going on here. This guy is going to move to here. All right, the Germans have a lot of guys down here. They're going to activate two of them. They're going to send this guy over here because he'll get on the ferry later to come into this area. And then that's one of the two units activated. The other one, he could come in over here. See that this is a wide area. So he's going to go 1, 2. All right. The Allies still waiting for the Germans to do something out here. They're going to attack into here with this one and this one, coming in separate spaces but going to the same space. So that's allowed. So they do that. They're going to get 7 dice hitting on 3s, but this is an armored recon unit, so their chance to hit is only 2. So it might not go so well, but they want to take the chance. So they roll 7 dice hitting on 2s. We're just going to take that crap sheet here. And we got no hits at all. Okay, the German unit gets 2 dice hitting on 4. And he got 1 hit. So this guy would take a hit. All right. Okay. These German units here are going to move in. He's going to go there, taking control of Weiler and the... Oh, we forgot that there should be a control marker in St. Anna because there was an Allied unit there. Right now, the Allies are in trouble a little bit, and this other guy is going to move here. So I was saying Allies have a bit of a supply problem because they can no longer trace this supply source near this one, and these guys don't have a path. These guys can trace to here, but he can't trace through this enemy-controlled space, even though there are Allied units in there. He hasn't moved yet, though, so he has a chance to do something about it. That was the German turn. So they'll do something about it right now. He is going to attack into here. He has 5 dice hitting on 3s against 3 dice hitting on 3s. All right, so they roll 5 dice, and let's say they get 2 hits. And the Germans roll 3 dice, and we'll say they get 1 hit. So 1 hit's absorbed by the 4, so the German can either retreat or take a step. They will take a step. That is, he wins a strength point, and then the Allies must reach a strength point for their hit. This is how this situation looks now. So this guy can now trace supply out this way to here. So the airborne units are still in supply. The Germans, they're going to move this guy in also to here. Okay. The time is running low. The Allies in the south, these guys will come in and attack here like that. Unfortunately, the armor unit will only get to roll 2 dice. So this guy is hitting on 4s, this guy is hitting on 5s. So we'll roll separately because they have different hit chances. So 2 dice hitting on 5s, we'll say that one of those was a hit, and 3 dice hitting on 4s, we'll say they got lucky and they got 2 hits. So it's a total of 3 hits on the Germans. The Germans are rolling 2 dice hitting on 3s, but there's an armor unit they're firing at, so they're only hitting on 2s. But they got lucky and got 1 hit. So it's 3 hits the Germans need to satisfy. 1 is satisfied by the subtraction for the terrain. That leaves 2 hits. So if they take them in place, they die. So they will retreat to here, or that's hit number 2, and then lose a step for hit number 3. So the Allies do take this space back. Okay, German turn. What's left for the Germans? Oh, this guy up here. He's going to come in here to start threatening. ED. Not in the first area. The Allies They're all done up by Arnhem. They're going to this guy over in Grave. The Germans still have these two units in N3. They're going to come right into here with them, putting more pressure on Arnhem. All right, so the Allies only have one more impulse, likewise the Germans. So looking at what can still move, there's 101st units here. I think they're going to get this guy into the action. Attacking there isn't so good. Attacking there isn't so good because he only gets to roll 2 dice. Since we reestablished supply along the highway, we can afford to bring him forward. So we'll bring him to there. Armor can move 2 spaces. In this case, there was no opposition, so there's no restrictions. We place control here and control here. Move. Okay, so that was an Allied activation. So now it's the German turn again. They have this guy. He's in a German-controlled contested space. Fortunately for him, if you're in a contested space, you can't move to an enemy-controlled space. So all of the places that he could move are Allied-controlled, so he is stuck. So no point in activating him. And it looks like the Germans are going to pass because they still want to leave this armor unit in Eindhoven. So they pass, and that's the end of turn 2. I just wanted to point out some of the ways that victories achieved in this game. Looking at the turn track again, I'm going to zoom in. For example, on turn 8, it says German victory if less than 10 objective VPs. That refers to the objective VP markers along the main highway, the highway that runs from south to north. There's VPs of 0, 4, 6. So what that's saying is that the Allies have to have a 30 core unit in this space or higher by that game turn, and that unit must be able to trace supply. If they don't, if they haven't gotten there yet, the game is over. There's a Allied Objectives VP marker up here that can be placed to mark the furthest north that the Allies have gotten. So this marker, generally, players put it in the 0 space at the start of the game. And at the moment, the Allies haven't gotten to 4 yet, so it's still here. When they take Eindhoven, we'll move up to 4, and so forth. So that going back to the turn track here, on turn 8, you've got to be in space 10. On turn 10, you have to be in space 14, which is next to Nijmegen. And on turn 12, you have to have reached 18, which is across the bridge at Nijmegen. If the Allies manage to do that, then you count victory points, which are a combination of that number for how far you got, and also units eliminated. Up here is a track, and most, but not all, units have, on their 1 strength face, have a victory symbol. And that means when they're eliminated, it's worth 1 or 2 victory points. So the symbol will say 1 or 2. And you keep track of units lost by moving this marker in the Allied favor for German units eliminated and the German favor for Allied units eliminated. If at any point in the game the marker gets here, it's a German victory, and here it's an Allied victory. At the end of the game, the position of the marker is added or subtracted as victory points from this value here. So if the game goes all the way, then that's how you determine victory. The other way, the way the Allies can win an early victory is to get to space 24 here before the end of the game with a 30 core unit that can trace supply all the way back. So there you go. So there's several ways to win this game. So you've seen how this game just swings back and forth with a lot of chess-like move decisions. If I do this, well, what will the opponent do? That's one of the core game mechanics of the system. Hope you enjoyed this Learn to Play. Market Garden has just come out from Compass Games. And if you have more questions about the game, you can ask them on Board Game Geek. I frequent that. And thanks again. Take it away, Mo.